So for us, absolutely that's a growth market, because those people who are that age, those awesome women who are going to give us money in like 10, 15 years, like our current donor base, are incredibly important to us. So maybe white men run the world, but women donate to charities.
To undo the unsustainable practices of the men.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it is, for me, I'm really lucky that my social media role here isn't tied directly to fundraising. And Kurt and I have talked about this a lot, and it has to be approached quite differently because we're motivated by kind of different organizational goals. And it's not to say that one's right or wrong. I mean, social media is a tool. It can serve either of us the way that we need it to. For me, telling the story, building that kind of long-term relationship, like just getting people to understand what it is we're doing, why it's important. It's important. I mean, the support for our campaigns like Earth Hour and like the adoptions program and like Sweater Day, which is coming up, if I can just throw that in. The support for that is really important, and that is a metric that is probably more important to me than fundraising right now, and like having people participate in our campaigns is a big thing. But beyond that, like my vision is to build that long-term story, and many of our stories, as Stephen knows better than anyone, are long-term.
The more interactive, the more of a conversation, the smarter the messaging will be when it comes to the direct marketing, when it comes to the targeting, that in which you do have messaging for very clear fundraising perspective, that if it's grounded in dialogue, that messaging is going to be far more responsive and far more interested in water usage. But then all of a sudden you switch to a different area, still within the larger environmental sector, and then you notice they start unfollowing you because they're not interested in that particular niche. Is that a problem? Is that not a problem? Where is coherence in our attention deficit society? I ask you, amateur psychologists and sociologists now appointed to the panel.
I stick to my level of expertise. I could have a personal account. I don't know how many people would follow it, but I stick to climate change and energy and include my personality in it, but yeah, only what I know best, I guess.
Not speaking for me really, but and I look to Sarah for others, but I know we're trying to give people a variety of opportunities, and they'll participate in some and perhaps not in others, and we can't always tell when. So we want to make sure there's choice for them too.
I think that we have to be aware that people aren't all that engaged. Some are very engaged and they'll stick around for the information they're interested in, and some are just casual and they're going to follow and unfollow because that's the nature of the medium. And I don't think your organization can always take it personally. I think it's more important to be true to what your organization's issues are than to care about those followers who come and go.
And I really think James put his finger on it too. I mean, I'm always joking that I don't want to hear people say social media is a conversation at things like this, but Joanne, people are going to talk to you because you're going to talk to them, not because you're just broadcasting, but because you're listening to what they're saying. You're like, this is interesting. I'm going to share this link you shared with me. Because you're having the conversation with them, because you're not just like, okay, this week I'm talking about this, everybody listen. This week I'm talking about this, everybody listen. It's in those interactions where you can talk back and forth that you're going to have people that will stick with you no matter like what you happen to be most focused on.
On your email message actually opted in. Otherwise, you could face serious fines. Hopefully, the people you're emailing would never make a complaint against you because they appreciate the message. But it does indicate that there are lots of different issues. So before we conclude, I would like to hear very briefly and formally from each of our four and a half groups in terms of what they discussed, what they felt were issues that we need to look forward, or rather look towards as we move forward. I heard about one particular issue over here around how do we coordinate, how do we learn about all the different projects, the different initiatives and campaigns that we have going. Perhaps we need our own internal intelligence facility to enable that type of sharing. So why don't we do what we did earlier, which is put Vancouver on the spot and allow them to start us off in terms of the report back from the breakout groups. Call it the geographical advantage of having better weather, that you then, as a result, get to present your thoughts and discussions first. So by all means, please take it away.
And that led into discussion of, if we're going to be talking about who we're going to communicate through social media with, and we don't even have a social media person, then that becomes a challenge, because if we don't have someone taking ownership of it, then we can't necessarily do that. So for smaller folks, there's a big challenge there. And then Randy had some great tips for people of free services that people can use to get a sense of, you know, what the analytics are, who's tweeting, who's not tweeting, and there's a lot of good resources and research out there. So I think that's all we mostly chat about, unless everyone in my group I'm looking at isn't looking at me. I don't think there's anything else more to add. But we also ended with two, I'm sorry, I forget your name, came in at the end, that it's important not to be totally celebratory about the effects of social media tools, and we need to pull it down a bit and understand that it's a small percentage of users who actually retain an attachment to these tools and to these networks, and what does that mean for who we're communicating with and what audiences we're reaching, et cetera, et cetera. So,
referred to as the internet, that there clearly isn't a right way or a wrong way. There are mistakes, there are wins and successes, but I think the key here is a combination of openness and a willingness to learn. And that's something I think we've all expressed. The issue, I think, moving forward is both a need to be strategic and ensure that strategy comes before a lot of the efforts that we're putting on, and a need for coordination, that there has to be much more internal dialogue amongst the NGOs so that we can all benefit from the lessons that we're all gleaning. I certainly am happy to give a last opportunity for anyone, whether on the panel or not, to offer some concluding or synthesizing thoughts. I assume we don't have to vacate the premises immediately. There is still a number of cookies and soft drinks and coffee available. So if anyone wants to say any closing remarks, now is the opportunity to put up your hand to get a microphone. Otherwise, I would thank everyone, including World Wildlife Fund. Oh, did we have someone from Vancouver? No, there hasn't been. I would thank World Wildlife Fund for hosting us all here today, and thank all of you for making it north of Bloor, north of St. Clair, almost north of Eglinton. If you cross the street, you may experience a part of Toronto. Social Media Week is going on for the duration. There will be a lot of other interesting events that I encourage you all to go to and stand up and say, I was at the great event on Tuesday at the World Wildlife Fund, and we said so many great things about how the environment, blah, blah, you know, to let people know that social media is not just about consumer brands, it's not just about self-promotion, it is about substantive policy issues, and I think we successfully demonstrated that tonight. So I would thank all of you again for coming, thank the panel, and thank our friends in Vancouver for tolerating us in terms of the limits of bandwidth and telecommunications, but I think we've all done well, so thank you very much. And I'd also add, if you have any follow-up questions, the WWF Facebook page seems like a pretty good place to start in terms of extending this conversation.
It's sweatered also, I do a terrible job of this is our little app, try it out, it's fun.